The story is about my dad. My dad's name is Dan Cody, and Dan practiced personal injury law and workers' compensation for probably over 50 years. And my dad was a neighborhood lawyer as well. Everybody came to him in the neighborhood, friends would. He got the word out that he's the lawyer. So he was a bit of the neighborhood lawyer, and he had a neighbor named Bob Moore. And Bob and Dan were very close. Bob and Dan, he represented Bob in an auto accident, and I believe he also represented on a couple of matters, other matters with Bob, and also he represented Bob's daughter. The point I'm getting to is that over time they kind of grew distant, and there was not a lot going on, and Bob developed cancer, and Bob died. Before Bob died, he was at home, and he was in his easy chair and gripping something tightly one day in his hand. Now, we found out about this because we spoke to his widow, Mrs. Moore, at his wake. And she told us, Dan and I, what happened. And she said there he was sitting, and in his hand he's clutching the fist very tightly, and I saw he had something, so I poked and prodded, and I got him to open up his hand because he didn't want to give it to me. And he opened it up, and in a straggly written handwriting, simply Dan Cody. And I still, it's hard for me to tell the story, even years later. And she said to Bob, why Dan Cody? What? He hasn't represented us for years. And Bob said, Dan's my lawyer, and I know I'm in trouble. Maybe Dan can help us one more time. And that's the end of the story. And I tell that story for a couple of reasons. One is I wish for all of my colleagues here and remote, everyone here, that I wish that in all the file cabinets of your career, you find one Bob Moore. And if you can, and not if you can, but when you do, you will consider yourself, I consider yourself a success in this business we call law.